Just kind of like, wait for that, so I gotta make sure I make a little lunch break out.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I'll be taking photos.
So we have a jam-packed agenda, so I'm starting a little bit early today. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service. I'm Steve Wicks, and I'm honored to serve as your president this year. Those who were here last year remember that we tried to do the Pledge of Allegiance and realized we didn't have a flag. We do have a flag today, so if you're able, please stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Tyler is about to put up a slide. They mentioned last week that instead of having an oath, I was planning to have a historical fact. Not an oath, a quote, excuse me. So here is a map of colonial America, and anyone in the group from the state of Vermont? Has anyone been to Vermont? Ah, okay, much better. Okay. So in colonial America, the area now known as Vermont was a territory claimed by the neighboring states of New York and New Hampshire. So on this day, July 8th, 1777, the residents of Vermont held their own constitutional convention, and they created a republic, the free and independent state of Vermont. And in that constitution, it outlawed slavery. And this was the first abolition of slavery anywhere in the Americas. So they were definitely ahead of their time. And then after the Revolutionary War ended, Vermont settled its differences with its neighbors. And in 1791, they ultimately became the 14th state. So good for Vermont. Reflection for today, Michael Wade will reflect on his work as a Teacher's Warehouse volunteer.
Well, good afternoon. I come from a long line of teachers going back 4 generations. My Uncle Martin taught law at University of Iowa. My Aunt Bee 3 generations ago. founded and was chair of occupational therapy at University of Illinois at Chicago for decades and decades. One generation ago, my Uncle Dick taught history at University of Rochester, University of Chicago. And when he put it, I got tired of teaching rich kids and he moved to New York City colleges where he taught history there. My 8 brothers and sisters, 7 of us became teachers. I taught at the college level, but as did a couple of my other siblings, but one of my sisters taught grade school, another one taught ethics and religion at a Catholic high school. My very first volunteer activity as a Rotarian was to sign up for the Teachers Warehouse supply drive and stand in front of Kroger, where Ashley, one of our past presidents, I think, was also doing one of her first service activities as a Rotarian. Once I fully retired about a year ago, I volunteered at Rotary on a regular basis during the school year. I forgot exactly what the hours there are, 3 to 6, I think. In the summertime, it's 1 to 4. I find it fun. I find it amazing, all the stuff that teachers need. I think it's amazing that the group Teachers Warehouse was founded by our Rotary Club in 2004. Last year, they served over 3,000 individual teacher visits and gave away $400,000, a little more than $400,000 to teachers for those visits. You wouldn't believe the types of things that teachers need, from thousands upon thousands of boxes of crayons to, we got this amazing donation of this incredibly well curated collection of snails from all over the world. There must have been 50,000 of them, their shells in there. Well, the teachers hoover that stuff up. And of the odd things I've learned, there's actually a version of Monopoly that's dedicated to the theme of the Indianapolis 500. It has a little bit more money in some cases than the regular Monopoly. I'm not sure why, but that's what it says online anyway. So I'm happy to say that all of the slots for this weekend's supply drive have been filled as of Monday. So I look forward to serving with you. I'll be at Kroger on the east side and Kroger on the west side at different times. And I look forward to just shopping Rotarians and hoping that you'll donate, as you've been so generous in the past, to Teachers Warehouse. Thanks.
Thank you. Could all the regular Teachers Warehouse volunteers just raise your hand? Okay, quite a few. Thank you. Okay, Hank Walter will introduce our guests.
So we have 4 guests in person today. First up, from the Observing Civic Engagement Lab, Dylan Emberton, who's here to observe. Guest of Tracy Jovanovich is Lisa Lehner. Lisa, if you would. And we have a guest from, this says private industry, Ms. Lucy Deckard. And the wife of Jonas Chang, Andrea Alunai. Have any guests online?
Yes, Hank, we do. And you can all join me in welcoming Sarah Marshall, who is a friend of our own Tyler Martin Nichols. So welcome, Sarah.
Hey, birthdays. Chris MG, who's sitting over there, has a birthday tomorrow. And Paul Hazel has a birthday on the 14th. And we have one anniversary to report. Michael Wade has his 8-year anniversary on the 11th. Number of announcements. Don't forget to buy your Rotary Toast tickets Friday, November 7th. Remember, this year's recipient is retired Bloomington North teacher Pat Wilson, a wonderful choice. And her selected service organization, the Bloomington North Habitat for Humanity chapter, very deserving. You want to go to rotarytoast.com for your tickets. Community Services Survey. We've had 37 members fill in the electronic survey. If you haven't done so already, please do so. If you don't like the mess with computers, we have a couple of paper copies on tables, and so you can complete it and hand it to Natalie after the meeting. Of course, the emphasis is this week is the Teachers Warehouse Supply Drive, but we also have another service project coming up, the Hoosier Hills Food Bank, which is on the 25th. You should have received a Sign Up Genius email with a link to sign up. I think we have about half the people we need. So if you're interested, go ahead and go online. If you need help finding the link, ask Natalie and we'll get you going in the right direction. We need a small group of club members to take pictures during meetings. If you're interested, see Alan Barker, who is sitting over there. We have an opening for next week's 3-minute reflection. If you're someone who has something you want to share with the club, please be the first one to sign up. Finally, earlier this year, we welcomed the Red Cross as a new organizational member. Right now, they are running short of a couple of blood types, O negative and AB negative, and they have blood drives in the next couple of weeks. There's one tomorrow at Ivy Tech, and there's one the following day at Ivy Tech. So if you have those blood types and you're available to give blood, please do so and help the Red Cross. Right now, Michael Shermis has a programs committee exercise for us. Should be very interesting.
As your ever-loving program committee chair, I work with the program committee every year to try to line up good speakers, like the one we're having today. And, but I need everybody's help with this. So on your table is a little form. Just flip them over. I even put pens out for people. If you could fill out the form with your ideas. So you may have a topic, but not have a speaker. You may have a speaker, but not have a topic. You may have a speaker's organization, but don't actually know who at the organization who would speak. Or you may just have a random idea. Put them all down, please. Fill this out. I will come around and collect them up at the end of the day. You can also do it electronically if Sarah would be so kind to put it into the roundabout so that anybody that's not here who is online can also be able to do this. Send your ideas. The program committee is meeting next week to be able to look over all of these ideas and try to figure out what can work. And sometimes things don't work out. Everybody said, we want IU women's basketball. And I tried really hard, but alas, they just can't do it. Just got the word this morning that they're just not able to do it. And not just the coach, but even the assistant coaches. So sometimes it doesn't work out. So if it doesn't happen, there's sometimes a reason behind why it doesn't happen. But we really do try hard to make all these ideas come to fruition and get some really good speakers lined up for you. So so please put your ideas down to them and send them to me by Sunday, or get this done now, and then you won't have to worry about it by Sunday night, because next Tuesday we are going to get together with the program committee and go over it all and try to figure out what our next speakers will be. We're lined up until the end of September. So this is for the future, but it takes a long time to get everything lined up and all set. So thank you very much for all your suggestions and ideas. They're appreciated. There you go. Thanks.
Hey, Tyler, can you put up the next slide? So I showed this slide last week. Once again, it is the 7 areas of focus for Rotary. And we'll advance to the next slide, and reminder that July is Maternal and Child Health Month. And then a couple of reminders. So the Rotary, this was announced still about the third week in June. Rotary International and the Gates Foundation have extended their partnership to end polio. And so the Gates Foundation is going to put up 300 million. Rotary International is going to put up 150 million over 3 years in the effort to finally eradicate polio across the world. And then here last week in June in Calgary, 16,000 Rotary members, participants, 140 countries in the world registered for the International Convention in Calgary, including our own Yolanda Trevino. And Yolanda will speak to us here in a couple of weeks, not about her Calgary trip, but about her year as president, as club president. So that brings us to the mystery Rotarian. So remember, what I'll do is the next slide will show a clue of someone in this club. And if you know the answer, put up your hand. Don't shout out the answer. For our Zoom guests, don't type the answer or say anything. Let your host Joy know that you know it. Send her put your electronic hand up or send her a message. But not one that anyone can see. So here's the first clue. So this Rotarian has served as a track official for IU and Indiana State for 20 years. Okay, we have a few who know. Okay, next clue. This Rotarian is a veteran. Put up your hand if you think you know. Okay. Final clue. This Rotarian has served this club in multiple roles, including club president. Okay. And our answer is Charlie Osborne. Charlie, do you want to stand up? And I think Jim Cryway was our first person in the room who knew. Joy, did anyone know online?
No, no.
Okay, all right. So congratulations to Jim Cryway. Yes, you may get another dessert. And this picture is Charlie's official FC Tucker picture. He's still an active realtor. If you have a house to list, see Charlie. Can we go to the next slide? And so he's a member of the USA Track and Field Association. He specializes in the jumps. And he served the U.S. Army between 1970 and 1995, service in Vietnam and Desert Storm. And then as he was this club president. He also served as a social chair for a number of years. He took pictures, so he's been a very active club member. Okay, Sally Gaskell will introduce our speaker today.
Hey, everybody. Danielle Johnson is Director of Curatorial Affairs at the Eskenazi Museum of Art. I think she's our first speaker from the museum since before they changed their name and since before the renovation, because David Brenneman spoke to us just about 10 years ago. Now, Danielle oversees the exhibition program and the museum's encyclopedic collection of over 47,000 works. She manages 4 departments, which are curatorial, conservation, collection management, and installation, totaling 17 full-time staff and 17 part-time and student workers. Prior to arriving in Bloomington about 3 years ago, she taught art history and worked in various museums, ranging from the Museum of Modern Art in New York to Florida Atlantic University and the Vero Beach Museum of Art. Danielle's PhD is in art history, from NYU, and her expertise is European and American art of the 20th century, particularly surrealism. She wrote her dissertation about René Magritte and Salvador Dali. Welcome, Danielle.
Well, everyone can hear me. I can hear myself. All right, good. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. I have spoken to quite a number of Rotary clubs over the years. And in fact, just yesterday, I was speaking to a colleague who has never spoken to a Rotary club. And I questioned if you could even be a curator if you hadn't done that. So this is always a great group to speak to. And I look forward to this talk and to hearing your questions. So first off, as Sally mentioned, I've been here for a little over 3 years. And over the last year, we have not had a director, but happily, we will have a new director in August. Her name is Mindy Bessaw, and she is coming from Crystal Bridges in Arkansas. So that will be very exciting, and hopefully you will hear from her someday and not in 10 years. But today I'm really going to be talking about a few things that are happening at the museum right now, and then looking forward to the next year, specifically the next 2 semesters, in the hopes that you'll not only come to the museum, but spread the word among the community so that we can continue to serve our mission of communicating the power of art to the campus and Bloomington area. Oh, I forgot I'm supposed to use this. So first, I want to mention 2 smaller exhibitions that are at the museum right now. So of course, it's the summer, and we are turning over our 2 major exhibition spaces. But we have 3 stories of galleries, and there are some really interesting displays that highlight new research that the curators and students have been doing. And they both address what art historians call provenance, or the history of objects, which has always been important, but has become more and more important in recent years because of concerns surrounding ethical collecting, and particularly colonial collecting practices. One of our curators has been working in this field for a very long time, and her area of expertise, like mine, is 20th century art, and she has looked very closely at the World War II era provenance of the works in our collection, and in doing so has learned a lot about the history of the works. She started this project to make sure that we had no objects that were looted during World War II or that were taken from their owners without legal basis. And in the process, again, has found some really interesting stories about their ownership history. And so you see here on the screen, I have 2 images of that display, which is split between 2 galleries on our first floor. And if you come and see this, and I hope that you do, be prepared to learn not just about what the artworks are about, but again, about how they came to be at the Eskenazi Museum. And this is the second display that I mentioned that addresses the object history, or the provenance of works in our collection. And it is called Alternate Paths: New Object Histories from Africa to America. Our African art collection is one of the strongest in the country, or even really in the world. And that is due to the very strong history of African studies at IU, as well as the fact that one of our directors was the first person to receive a PhD in African art history from the University of Iowa. The University of Iowa also has a very strong African art collection, and one of our curators co-taught a class with the curator at the Stanley Museum in Iowa, and the students together put together this exhibition. And then It started, so we loaned our objects to Iowa and they loaned their objects to us. It was first on display in their galleries and now it is on display in ours. And what was really interesting in that process is, first of all, when I dropped in the classes, the students were so engaged, and really it was incredibly dynamic the way they were speaking together and working through the process of curating an exhibition. It was also very interesting to understand that their concerns were very much about the ethical concerns behind displaying and acquiring artwork. And to me, that is a museum professional, that's very encouraging for the future of the field. And here you see some installation images. And of course, it's much more interesting in person. Please do walk over. And now I want to speak about two exhibitions that will be up in the fall. One of them I'm curating, and I am curating this show because normally it would be our Works on Paper curator, but our longtime Works on Paper curator, Nan, she retired. And Nan has been a Bloomington resident for a long time, so I'm sure some of you know her. But I took it over and was very happy to do so. And I've been curating this show, co-curating it with a graduate assistant in the art history department, whose name is Olivia Kalish. So Helen Frankenthaler was a mid-century artist, best known for her painting, but she also had a really wonderful practice in printmaking. We had two prints already in the Eskenazi Museum's collection. And in the last few years, we got in touch with the Helen Frankenthaler Foundation in New York, which is a very active artists foundation who gives a lot of grants in addition to promoting Frankenthaler's work. And they donated a whole series of works to the museum. I believe it's 15, although I'd have to recount. And this really enables us to show our students and show the community the variety and the innovativeness of her work, of Frankenthaler's prints in particular. And part of the agreement of the donation is that we have an exhibition. And so that is happening in the fall in our prints, drawings, and photographs exhibition space on the 3rd floor. Just show you a few of these a little more closely. So in addition to Frankenthaler's work, Olivia and I decided to include some other mid-century American artists, such as Robert Motherwell. And that's to really flesh out the exhibition, to more fully tell the story of mid-century and late 20th century printmaking. And it has the additional benefit of getting works out that are in our collection that aren't often on view. And so our audiences are able to experience something different from our collection. We are also borrowing a few works from the Lilly Library, which I would say of campus units, we most often borrow from them because they have, of course, as we all know, wonderful material. And these are two artists' books by Joan Mitchell and Grace Hartigan, two 20th century American artists, also who worked in the abstract expressionist movement. So very fluid, abstract work, very expressive. And it was important to me to, first of all, show that part of printmaking in this time period is tied to book arts. And then in addition to that, it was also important to me that we had more women artists in the show, because it just more fully tells the story of mid-century American art. And unfortunately, we did not have that many, we didn't have works by Joan Mitchell. We don't have works by Mitchell or Hartigan in the Eskenazi Museum's collection at the moment. And then you can see here, I just want to point out that we already owned the finished version of this print, and then we received what are called the proofs. So artists go through a number of proofs in the printmaking process. They make notes, they tell their collaborators how they would like the prints changed. And receiving the proofs for this print is such an amazing gift because it allows us to show students how artists think and work and the amount of detail and time that goes into something like this, or any print, but especially astounding when you look at a print like this, which seems like it was done very quickly, very fluidly, when in fact the process was painstaking. And I think that's a really important thing to be able to communicate to students, whether they're art students or students in any field who are contemplating, excellence, frankly. And then finally, I just want to point out that there will be a number of curator-led tours, and we will also have a talk called Frankenthaler, Creativity and Aging. That is the working title. And it will be given by Douglas Dreichspoon, who is the director of the Helen Frankenthaler Catalog Raisonné Project, and also the chief curator emeritus of the AKG Museum in Buffalo. And I think he's a wonderful speaker, so get this on your calendar. Our special exhibition, our bigger special exhibition in the fall, is called Remembrance Renewal, American Artists and the Holocaust, 1940 to 1970, and it is curated by Jennifer McComas, who is the museum's curator of European and American art. So this exhibition is the first to examine the impact of the Holocaust on mid-century American art. And in doing so, it will broaden and nuance our understanding of modernist art. So there will be works by canonical artists, well-known artists, alongside works by artists who are not yet part of the canon. But of course, these artists worked side by side with their more famous counterparts during these years. There are 74 works in the collection, and they're organized according to 4 themes: destruction, exile, remembrance, and repair and renewal. The loans for this exhibition come from all over the country and from major museums like MoMA, Whitney, the Philadelphia Museum, and many more, as well as academic museums such as the Allen Memorial Art Museum at Oberlin, which has a great modern art collection. There are also a number of works that from our own collection that were either donations or purchases. And you can see one of those on the screen here. We purchased this print just last year in anticipation of the exhibition. You can see here 3 other works that will be in the collection, in the exhibition. The work on the left is by an artist who is really, both of these artists, Anna Walinska and Hannelore Barron. Remember those names because they're becoming more and more popular and better known. And I'm proud to say, in the past years, we've been able to acquire works by these artists. And here are 4 other works that will be in the exhibition. And you can see these works are all on loan from Museum of Fine Arts Houston, Museum of Fine Arts Boston, and others. So there's a huge range. You can see just on this page, you have a well-known artist, Frank Stella, along with 3 lesser-known artists. So even though this isn't within my area of expertise, I am not familiar with these artists. So there are so many ways this exhibition will contribute to our understanding of this time period. And then we also are publishing a catalog along with the exhibition, and it is published by Yale University Press, which at the moment, and really for the last 10, 15 years, has been considered to be the preeminent art exhibition catalog publisher. It's a beautiful book, and it is authored primarily by Jenny McComas, as well as 2 additional professors. And then here are some of the events that will be held in conjunction with the exhibition. There will be an opening lecture and reception, and Jenny will give that talk. And then on November 17th, there will be a half-day symposium. And this will really contribute, I think, to understanding how Jewish art and experience are presented currently in American art museums and how these museums are reconsidering that presentation. And that's something that Jenny has been interested in for many years, and in fact is something that is gaining more traction within the museum field. All right, so that is the fall. And I hope you'll go and see both of these exhibitions between when they open in August, September, and when they close around the holidays or shortly, not too long after that. But then in February, we have our next round of exhibitions. This particular exhibition, which will be in our special exhibition gallery, is called Muljana, Vital Ecosystems. And this show is curated by Natasha Kimmich, who began as curator of Asian art at the museum, I guess maybe a year and a half ago now. So she is a relative newcomer. So you can see some images here of the work of this artist. And I was really pleased when Natasha brought this artist to my attention, because since I got here 3 years ago, I really wanted a show that addressed the environment and sustainability. I think it's a very important topic right now. It's imperative that we think about and address this topic. And then on top of it, I also understood from speaking to my academic museum colleagues that this was an extremely popular subject for an exhibition on their campuses, that they were able to address a very wide range of classes, work with a lot of faculty, and that students in general really responded to this subject matter. And so when Natasha brought this show to me, I was very happy to consider it. Muljana is an Indonesian textile artist. And you can see him at the upper right. He considers environmental sustainability from several different angles. First of all, the actual subject matter, when you look at the work, he is primarily dealing with the ocean and humans' effect on the ocean and the effect that that is having on the environment in total. And you can see here, he creates this, an immersive environment. And so that you are physically experiencing the artwork around you. And you can see that most particularly on the left. And in addition to that, he makes these works from scraps of yarn that he collects from different factories, fabric and yarn that he collects from different factories in Indonesia. He also has a series of works that he started during COVID where he was receiving a lot of food deliveries, and we all know those plastic bags that food deliveries come in. And he was using those plastic bags, cutting them into strips, and using those to create these new artwork, the new artwork. And so he's really thinking about how materials can be reused in his work. In addition to that, he is very concerned with community art practices. So of course, many artists have studios, but he works with people from the community, particularly women from the community, to create these works. So it is not a traditional studio, but rather a community practice. And on the lower right, you see he is a mannequin. So we will be displaying these mannequins, but what's fascinating about these is that they can also be worn and performed. So I'm trying to convince some students to perform the works. I mean, and I'm sure we will find some students in theater or dance who would be happy to indulge this and to activate this artwork. And he does so himself as well. So and part of that is very closely related to a long-standing and important puppetry tradition in Indonesia. And so there are so many different angles at which to look at this exhibition, and I'm quite convinced that it will be popular on campus. And then finally, the last exhibition that I'm going to be speaking about is Rania Matar, Where Will I Go? And that is curated by Layla Reichert, who is our curator of contemporary art, and it opens in March. Matar is a photographer. She is Lebanese American. She came from Beirut, from Lebanon, from Lebanon to the US as a young woman, but she goes back frequently. She currently lives in Boston. And a large part of her work looks at young women coming of age in Lebanon, which, as we know, has been in various degrees of crisis for decades now. And she works with them, again, collaboratively to choose a space that they want to be photographed in and how they want to be photographed. So in these instances, we're able to, when you listen to her, and she will come and give a talk, when you listen to her, she's able to tell the stories of why these young women chose these spaces. For instance, sometimes it was their grandmother's home that had been bombed. Or you have a very important theater on the lower right that it has now fallen into disrepair, formerly important theater. And this is very much related to her own personal history. You know, she is someone who left Lebanon and had to think about how she wanted to create her own life in a new place while still holding on to a country and a people that were very important to her. And she sees these young women dealing with these same issues. And this is part of what she is expressing in these photographs. So I'd like to finish up talking a little bit about our collection and particularly just a couple of recent acquisitions. So we acquire in various ways. We acquire through very generous donations. A lot of my time is actually spent analyzing potential donations and deciding what we can commit to. A lot of people like to donate, and we do accept things that are right for the collection, always keeping in mind that when we accept something, we are committed to caring for it to the highest standards possible for perpetuity. And so we have to be quite selective about that because there are a lot of resources, of course, that go into that level of responsibility. We also purchase works. I would like to purchase all the time, of course. Funds are always a concern, but it's very important, in my opinion, particularly to collect contemporary art so that we remain relevant in the museum field, but also relevant to our students. I found that students really respond very positively to contemporary art, especially when and they respond positively to our historical collections when we're able to connect it concretely to their concerns now. And part of the way we can do that is by, connecting it to contemporary art. Oops. So I want to talk to you about one initiative that I'm very proud of. When I got here, I really wanted students to acquire artwork, which, as far as anyone knows, had not really happened in the museum's history, although certainly I'm certain there are students who contributed ideas, but it wasn't wholly their decision. One of our curators, Layla, she has taught now twice a course called Contemporary Art in the Academic Museum. And a big part of this course is acquiring artwork, works on paper, for the museum. And this has happened twice now. And you can see here, so what happens is the students choose the artwork from various printers and dealers across the country. We bring in the artwork so they can see it in person. It's very important to experience the artwork in person. And then they vote on the works. They discuss and vote on the works, keeping in mind the many criteria we have for choosing artwork for the museum. Its subject matter, its appearance, but primarily what I really want to know when a curator wants to purchase something is how is this going to be used in our galleries? How is it going to be used by classes? Who will really be interested in this work? And what I love about the students is that you get a different view of that. And they tend to come up with things that I like, but that I wouldn't necessarily have chosen myself. And this is one work by Manabu Ikeda, 2 works that we acquired. And this is an artist who deals a lot with the environment. So again, speaking to a concern of the students. And here are 2 other works. I won't get into them too much because I'd like to take your questions, but these are 2 other prints. And this one also deals with, corporate culture and the historic denial of the tobacco industry, of the ill effects of tobacco. And on the left, that is a work that speaks to, it's about an important woman who, a Quaker who really was very important in establishing that religion. And then finally, I just want to show you 2 recent donations. So these are the types of works that we very kindly have donated from our community, many of whom have IU connections and are alums. The one on the left is a contemporary Dutch artist, and it was donated by Arlene and Andy Hurwitz. They have deep connections to IU. And this is a really stunning photograph, particularly in person. And then the work on the right is actually donated by not only an alum, but also a museum staff member in honor of her mother. So, and with that, I hope you got a sense of what is happening at the museum right now. I'm really excited about the present and also the future, and hope that you'll not only visit, but please don't hesitate when you have questions to reach out. We have a great staff who always wants to hear from the community.
Before we get the question in the room, we're going to start with Jeff Richardson online.
Thank you. That was an excellent presentation. I love the museum. I'm never disappointed every time I visit there. I am curious, though, when you mentioned one particular artist who will be talking about her experience with women in Lebanon, and you showed as an example some bombed out pictures. And of course, I hark back to not that long ago that where an artist was under scrutiny for her Facebook posts and for her writings and her speeches and other things. And I'm just curious if that same kind of scrutiny is happening not only with that particular artist, but let's just say in general now, when you invite someone to speak or donate or contribute, what is the protocol? Do everyone have their Facebook posts, their Instagram posts, their life basically evaluated and assessed before you accept the art or invite them? Or what are the new rules, so to speak? And especially with the new leader that interestingly took quite some time to identify and bring on board. So I'm just curious. And thanks again for your excellent presentation.
Sure, thank you. And that's the type of question, of course, that we anticipate. For those of you who need a reminder or aren't aware, there was an exhibition of a Palestinian American artist, Samia Halabi, canceled by the university. So it was last year. Time flies, about a year and a half ago now, actually. And your question is about has anything changed in the way that we think about artists and putting things on the exhibition schedule? From my perspective, I certainly, at this point, now that I've been in the job for 3 years, I am much more aware from the very beginning of the exhibition proposal of the artist and of the subject matter. That was not the case with Halabi. So I am not, frankly, I'm not quite clear about the vetting process. If they're really, I think it's difficult to say vetting, but I'm not really clear about the proposal process for that particular exhibition. But I can tell you that I really support important subject matter. And I felt that Matar's work really speaks to something that we as a community need to consider in really constantly looking outwards, thinking internationally, thinking globally, and the effect that policy decisions and wars that have been going on for decades can have on individuals. And that type of empathy and understanding is really important to me. And I think in terms of the previous exhibition, you know, again, it really hasn't changed the way that I evaluate artists and what I feel they will bring to our programming community.
Okay, I say good luck.
We're fighting a good fight, yeah.
Thank you so much for your talk. I just wanted to give a thank you and a shout out to the museum and its staff. During Bloomington Early Music Festival this past spring, we had a mask making workshop at the museum that we just had a ball with, and two of your curators actually spent quite a bit of time with us in the African art galleries, going over some of the more important masks that you have, and had a wonderful discussion with us about why they wear them, what they might mean, and gave us so much insight into masks and cultures and context. And just thank you so much for being an active museum and part of the community.
I understood. I did not attend that event, but I understood everyone was very happy, including the curators. So thank you for bringing it up. Yeah.
Yes,
Hi,
I
Charlotte.
love going to the museum, and when I go, first of all, is to the third floor. And that weaving on the wall.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, I wonder, I just love that. And I wonder where you got it, how you got it, how it came to be on the wall here.
So the very big weaving that we have, which unfortunately we had to deinstall because we can only keep items like that up for a certain amount of time because of light levels, and they can deteriorate. But that was a donation, actually. So we were very, very fortunate to have that donated to the museum. And stay tuned. We're going to get something else up in that space that hopefully will be as stunning. It was a donation. I'm trying to think of who donated it. It's a well-known name on this campus, but it's escaping me right now. But it's really someone who is very involved in the arts and had this piece that they felt would find a good home with us.
In your presentation, you mentioned working with students from African American studies, theater, dance, art history. Degrees in all those 4 areas have just been axed by IU Bloomington. How will that affect your museum?
Well, I think like all of us who are involved at the university, we're not quite sure, right? I mean, I wish I had the answers of how that will affect us. It certainly will affect us long term. And we will have to think. We do collaborate with those departments. We collaborate with African studies quite a bit. There were a number of departments when I looked at the list where I felt that, you know, we're losing really, I shouldn't say that, we might be losing in the long term some of these very historically strong collaborations. I'm hopeful that won't happen. You know, for instance, African studies has a very strong history at the university, and there are many people who work in that area that I hope will still be collaborating with us for years to come. But I also, you know, we're going to be reaching out and forming partnerships with other units as well, maintaining which is the same as what our plan has been. We want to maintain the collaborations we have currently, but then constantly growing and reaching out to different areas of the university. So, you know, I feel like this is a very uncertain time for a lot of people, and the museum and our staff certainly feel that, but that looking ahead, I believe very strongly in our program and our ability to contribute across the university. And I can only really hope that these programs do maintain their presence, and that we can continue working with them to the extent it's possible.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if you could talk more about your donation acquisition process. You put out calls for donations? Do people approach you? And what variables do you consider when?
So
choosing
mostly people
these?
approach us. And I mean, I get probably approached at least, we keep an Excel spreadsheet. In a year, there are maybe, I don't know, 150 offers. So it's a lot. So you're talking several times a week that I'm approached. And sometimes it's very easy to say, this is not right for our collection. You know, it's just not suitable. It's not something we collect. Someone offers me a car. That's an exaggeration, but you do get sometimes some offers that are just very clearly not right for us. And that's an easy no, thank you. And of course, I try to then say, you might want to check with this museum or this organization to try to guide them to someone who would be interested. And occasionally that really works and everyone's happy. And then the others most of the others have to be evaluated pretty carefully. So first of all, we consider the artist. Is it a well-known artist? Is it an artist that is not well-known, but we feel that the work is really strong and that it contributes to our collection overall? We consider, do we have already too many works by this artist? For example, we have a lot of work by artists who are connected to the university who are Hoosier artists. And so oftentimes when someone brings us a work by, say, T.C. Steele, you know, very well-known Indiana artist, we have a lot of work by the artist. So unless it's one of his masterpieces, it's not something that we would commit to. And then, of course, you have people who come to you with, this actually happened, of a Renoir, right? And we don't have any Renoir, and the Renoir is a very well-known artist, and so so that required less thought. But in that case, you do have to think about the provenance, the history of the work, and how did the current owner come to have it? Who were the owners of the work previously, so that you can to a reasonable degree determine that you are collecting this ethically.
So I have a quick question for you here. I'm sitting here
Yes.
behind everybody. So with emerging technology, digital arts, the way that people consume art, the way that people think about art, function of art in our society, how are you thinking as a curator about moving into that future? And what is the Eskenazi Museum doing in any way to sort of lean into that future and make sure that it's representing art in different ways?
That's a fascinating question. So, so we do have a time-based media space, but that's not quite what you're talking about. You know, that is, I mean, it's newer media, certainly for art museums, where, you know, we have 3 screens and it's essentially video. So we do have that space, and actually there are not many spaces in Indiana who are able to offer that. And so, you know, we're very keen to make sure that continues. But in terms of other emerging technologies, so we've partnered to do digital imaging on this one example, on 2 significant Roman portrait busts in our collection. And we were able to do that and decided to do that because we learned about the color, the paint that was originally on these busts. So these white busts that you see in museums, they were all painted at one time, very bright colors. This has become pretty widely known within the last few years. And we did some scientific work, collaborating across campus and with external parties on what the color of our busts might have been. And then we worked with experts on campus to create 3D images of what these actually would have looked like. So that's one example. And then even today, I was talking to our chief preparator, very experienced. He's been here for about 10 years now. And he's very enthusiastic about working with one of the labs on campus to do imaging of particularly our sculptures, but also in addition to that, he wants to move our technology to the space where we can do exhibition design with the 3D, Yes, the virtual reality, thank you. The virtual reality glasses, so that curators and students can experience the space in advance of actually installing the exhibition. And it will be a useful tool. It will really help us in our planning, particularly when you have really important loans from all over the world, to be able to offer this type of technology. And it's, I think also just, it's the direction the field is moving in. And when you are somewhere like the Eskenazi, you know, our staff is not huge. It's not tiny. Many museums, academic museum staffs are tiny. It's not tiny, but it's not a huge museum either. But when you're part of an academic community, of course, you can draw upon all of these different resources. And he's actually going to be, he'll be sending me a proposal in conjunction with a PhD student in this area. So this is the type of work that you know, I'll be honest, the technology, it's always more work than you think it is going to be. It always, it's like, oh, that's amazing. We should definitely do it. And then a year later, you're like, you know, this has been a bigger endeavor than we thought. But it's important to keep experimenting and keep moving in this direction, and also to the extent possible, to be able to offer these ideas to our students as well.
Danielle, thank you very much for your really informative presentation. I was especially taken by the opportunities for mannequins.
Would you like to dance in one?
I've been accused of being stiff, so maybe I'll sign up. Anyway, in honor of your presentation, a donation will be made this quarter to Off Night Productions. A little bit pressed for time. I'm going to thank the volunteers who helped today. I'm not going to name them by name. Our next meeting will be on July 15th here in the Georgian Room. Speaker will be Margaret Clements from the Bloomington Garden Club. And Tyler, if you can put up the four-way test. So please stand if you're able. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?